Right, thank you very much for staying on the program. Now, prices of petroleum products have gone up at the pumps. The new prices took effect this morning after the National Petroleum Authority gave the go-ahead to oil marketing companies to price their own products. The decision to deregulate the sector has been scrutinized over the past few days, with experts insisting it is illegal. The implementation, which was expected to take effect yesterday, was delayed because the regulator, NPA that is, had not given a formal communication to that effect until late last night. My colleague Felix Akoyam has visited a number of the pump stations. He's joined us over the telephone with more. I'll bring you that conversation later. But we'll stay on fuel prices. The National Petroleum Authority says it has put in place a pricing cap to check the pricing by oil marketing companies. You remember that I told you earlier that it had given the OMCs to go ahead to price their own fuel at the pumps. But speaking on the AM show, Chief Executive Officer Moses Asaga said this will ensure that companies do not charge above what the NPA has set. Mr. Asaga also noted the authority has conducted enough public education to sensitize consumers on the policy.
We don't anticipate subsidies. The previous subsidies are being ring-fenced and they will be paid by government and NPA. And that's when we have discussed with the oil marketing companies and the PDCs the way that will be handled. So once the deregulation becomes fully implemented, there will be no subsidies.
Let's say we're in an election year and government is worried about the upward adjustment of the fuel prices. And now that you say you're going to implement deregulation, and so we hit around November 2016, and the international price for crude is between, let's say, $80 to $90. What happens to the pricing formula?
Yeah, but I mean, as I say, it's due to market forces. You have been very selective in going to an election year. And I'm saying that it's neither here nor there in an election year. Because when prices are moderate, nobody comes to thank the government that prices are moderate because oil marketing companies have maintained moderate. Why is it that if due to market forces, prices go up, then you come and then say that it's an election year, so we are angry? That would be politicizing the market. It's just like telling me that if it's getting to Christmas and rice price goes up, do we go to complain to any government? All previous governments, did we go to complain that why has rice gotten up because it's Christmas? So it's neither here nor there. It's the market force. When your cement price go up, you don't go and complain to government that why has my cement price gone up? You know, so in the same way, fuel too should be treated the same way.
The NPA chief executive has also dispelled suggestions government will interfere in the deregulation policy come 2016 when Ghanaians go to the polls.
Why did you now to fully say you want to implement the deregulation pricing formula?
Well, this is just to meet the market conditions right now. I told you previously that deregulation has always been a process, and we want to demystify the fact that petroleum pricing should be different from all other commodities. So as I said, once you start the first phases of deregulation, including privatization of the importation of petroleum products, privatization of the infrastructure, distribution of petroleum products are all in the hands of the private sector. So this is the right time now for us to also liberalize the products so that market forces would determine the prices.
Now, would you say you've done enough education of the public, not only the motoring public, because we know that prices of petroleum products, as and when they are adjusted upwards or downwards, tend to influence inflationary trends, so to speak?
Yes, we have done a lot of public education. You know, this idea of deregulation has been on the table for the last 1 month with the pros and cons and everything. And I think the only thing that the public or consuming public was worried about was whether there wouldn't be one-ton increases by the oil marketing companies. But we have put in place a pricing cap where there's going to be an indicative price which is known to the MPA, and therefore if any oil marketing company goes beyond that cap, the oil marketing company will be sanctioned. So, for example, if the price is supposed to be 3 cedis 36 pesos by our indicative price, it means that oil marketing companies can only sell at 3 cedis 36 pesos, or they can then sell below because of the price competition. As we sit now, a few of the oil marketing companies are already trying to give some marginal discounts at their pumps.
Let's stay on this subject. Felix Akoyam has visited a number of pump stations here in the capital city, and he's joined me over the telephone with his observations this morning. Hello, Felix.
Hello, Kamine.
Where have you been today?
I've been to more than 3 filling stations. I first went to a filling station at Aveno. I've also visited 2 at Newtown. But essentially, the key thing is that there's been an increase in fuel prices, and this is due to the deregulation that government has implemented. And you know, we do know that this decision by government is to just, leave the pricing of petroleum products in the hands of importers and the marketers themselves. But one thing also that analysts predicted was the fact that this development could see prices of petrol reduce eventually as the oil companies compete to attract more customers. But we are seeing a sharp contrast of this at the fuel stations that I've visited. For instance, at the Aveno filling station I visited, 1 liter of petrol previously, the cost of 1 liter of petrol previously was 3.33 cedis. It's now being sold at 3.39. The other filling station I visited at Newtown, petrol is now 1 liter goes for 3.463. Previously, it was sold at 3.33.
So essentially, each pump sells at a different price.
At a different price. Some of the other stations too are now trying to adjust their prices, and so if customers come in, they tell them to wait for a while for them to adjust it.
How have motorists been reacting to the changes, the overnight changes?
Many of the people I've spoken to have responded with shock. They are utterly amazed because for most of them, they've not even heard of the deregulation before. And they are just saying that they feel it's insensitive on the part of government to leave, this in the hands of the fuel company. And essentially, they feel that government is not too concerned about their plight because of the hardship in the country now.
Very well. I'm grateful for your time, Felix. Felix Akoyam joined us with the latest on ex-pump prices at various fuel stations. We can now speak with the president of the Petroleum Retailers Association, Commodore Mensah. Good morning, Mr. Mensah.
Good morning, madam. How are you?
I'm well. Now, let's get into what really the new prices for fuel are.
Well, I can tell you that Shell or Vivo PMS is now 3 cedis 3.7, 3.47, and diesel is 3.37. I hear these figures are the same for Total, and that oil, the price is 3.39, and the diesel PMS is 3.24.
I see. Now, all of these people fall under your association. How were the prices arrived at?
Well, unfortunately, we don't have the capacity to fix prices. The prices are fixed by our OMCs, and they pass them on to us. And these export prices hopefully should include our margin, and that's where our interest is.
How do you see this playing in your favor? How do you see it dealing with your interest?
Like I said, our interest is in the margin. For as long as we are guaranteed equitable margins, we will say that we don't have any objection against the what is going on. But if any attempt is made to cheat us or to reduce our margins, then we would have a concern to express.
Then again, there are motorists who had no idea because the changes were overnight, feel that very little was done to make them know about this. It brings me to the question of how did the motorists, what was the thought about motorists when the overnight changes were being made? Because most people who go to the fuel pumps had no idea.
I agree 100% with you. Normally, an NPA had that responsibility of fixing prices. It was announced maybe on the eve. Maybe it would have been announced yesterday to take effect from this morning. But this time around, it took everybody by surprise. The prices were announced effective this morning. Some of us even they don't know beforehand. So these motorists who are expressing surprise are justified. But we hope this, with time, things will be done properly.
I see. Now, so you talk about your margins. With the new prices, does it include a favorable margin for you? Well, I think we lost Commodore Mensah there. He's president of the Petroleum Retailers Association. But I'm also joined over the telephone by Dr. Akoto, is a ranking member of the Finance Committee in Parliament. Dr. Akoto, good morning.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
I'm well. I trust you're well too. Now,
thank God by His grace.
Finally, this has come to effect overnight, and export prices are different at the various pumps you would visit. Your thoughts about this?
I'm not surprised. I mean, under the IMF program, the government is obligated to adjust petroleum prices bi-weekly under the IMF program. When the MPA announced that deregulation would take effect from June 15, they were telling lies because the current law has not been amended. So there's no way what they said could have started on the 15th. But under the IMF program, we have an obligation to adjust petroleum prices every 2 weeks. And to the extent that the city has depreciated a bit in the last 2 weeks, I'm not surprised. And I'm surprised that people are surprised.
Well, obviously, for the motorists, having been told that the process needed to undergo legal review, it's quite shocking that overnight.
No, but the other part is that all of us know that we have an IMF program, and under that program, the MPA should be telling Ghanaians that it is obligated to adjust prices every 2 weeks. You know, they fail to do that, and then the mode of implementation is not the best. Government has an obligation to tell us that is what it has contracted for us until otherwise.
Dr. Akoto, except that now the NPA is saying it is taking its hands off pricing.
No, it cannot. The current law is for the NPA to do that. The law has not been changed by Parliament. How can NPA? That's why I'm saying they misled Ghanaians by giving that impression. You cannot just.
So it is untrue that the new price we see now was set by the OMCs.
It's totally untrue. It cannot be. Otherwise, somebody will take the MPA to court. The law allows currently MPA to adjust the prices. But my point is that it is being done as part of our obligations under the IMF program, which was approved by the IMF board on April the 3rd. That is what the MPA should be telling Ghanaians. That's the truth.
Dr. Akoto, now the point I'm making is perhaps the NPA may have misled us into believing that the OMCs are those setting the prices right now.
And the NPA wants us to go there. But until the law has been amended, the current law allows only the NPA to fix prices. So they cannot have it both ways. The law has not been amended, as far as I know.
Well, which is why yesterday the ministry had mentioned that it was putting on hold, only for us to wake up this morning and hear that the OMCs have fixed their price. And so now when you go to the pumps, Shell prices differently, Gold prices differently, Total prices differently.
Because under the IMF program, I believe they should have done it yesterday or the day before. And if they didn't do it, the IMF is coming to town today. They would have checked to see if they did it bi-weekly. And if they hadn't, they would have missed the criterion. So it is meeting the IMF criteria. They should tell us the truth.
Are there any options available to the Ghanaian people in this particular issue?
The government has chosen an IMF program that requires it. If the government wants to do the deregulation as it sees it, it should come and amend the law, the MPA Act, so that the OMCs can set prices and so on. But MCA will still be a regulator to make sure that the prices are within a certain range.
Okay, so from what you're telling us, in the next 2 weeks, we should expect it to go up again.
If the crude oil price goes up and or the city depreciates again, and the way it's doing, it looks likely.
Well, it looks very dire for the Ghanaian as far as petroleum is concerned.
But that's my whole point. We have not been fully informed about the obligations under the IMF program. Just like utility prices will need to be adjusted every quarter. So don't be surprised if at the end of June, because of the depreciation of CD, there's an adjustment. This is part of the obligation.
Dr. Akosua, I'm grateful for your time.
Thanks.
Dr. Akosua is ranking member for Parliament Finance Committee. I've been discussing the new ex-pump prices, which is what you pay at the fuel stations you visit today or anytime afterwards. The prices differ from fuel station to fuel station. Dr. Akosua believes that this is part of the IMF conditionalities that were given to Ghana prior to the bailout. Meanwhile, the NPA says that it's taking its hands off pricing and will leave it to the OMCs. Now, again, the issue of how legal it is has come to play in my conversation with Dr. Akosua. Now, we'll come back to this briefly as we continue to go around fuel stations and bring you up to speed what's happening. But let's talk about